Holly?
Hi, Councillor Kaur. How are you? Oh, Councillor Kaur, you are muted. And I just want to let council know that we are streaming and the recording is on. And we're just waiting for 5:30. I'm not sure if you wanted something, but through you, Mr. Mayor, it is 5:30, and you can begin your meeting whenever you wish.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. I see that we have quorum, so I will call this meeting, regular council meeting for Monday, January 24th in session. And the first order of business is we will call on Councillor Wink to do the land recognition statement. Councillor? Oh, Councillor, you're on mute.
But I was so eloquent on the first few.
It looked really good.
We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people.
Thank you, Councillor. And to you, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. That does bring you to the adoption of the agenda, and I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that the agenda for the January 24th, 2022 regular meeting of council be adopted. To you, Mr. Mayor, to call for any amendments.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I will call the vote, starting with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item, which is the disclosure of pecuniary interest.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, is there any councillor that would wish to declare a pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Madam Clerk, I see none.
Through you, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Kaur, we can't see you.
I know, we're having difficulty.
Okay.
Okay, and Michael's trying to reach me. So I have a conflict of interest at 8.3.3.
Okay.
And I did contact the integrity commissioner, but it was too late to get a formal response to a conflict of interest dealing with this issue. And I have a concern, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO, I just wondered if he could help me with this. I have a concern with section in our code of conduct, section 2.2-3, 3.1D, 10.1, and 11.0, and the most important one was one being 7.7. And I just wondered if I could defer this issue until I get clarification of if I do have a conflict of interest.
Mr. CAO?
So if I may, sorry, Councillor Kaur, just it's 8.3.3, is that correct, sir?
So if I'm not mistaken, I'm just going to repeat them. It's 2.2.
Oh, Councillor?
The section on the agenda, sir?
Yeah, the one on the agenda, it was 8.3.3.
Yes, hold on. Yes, sir. 8.3.3.
Okay, well, that item has been, is probably not going to be, is going to be up for referral or deferral tonight.
Yes, so I don't think it's going to end up being discussed this evening, Councillor. So,
Okay, so I have an opportunity to make a formal
Request.
statement to the Integrity Commissioner.
the earliest I can see that coming back is February 7th, and we could presumably defer it longer than that to allow for, to ensure that you get an answer.
Okay, I appreciate that, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other conflict or disclosure of pecuniary interest? And not seen any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. For the record, I will note that Councillor Kaur has indicated that he has a conflict for the item on the consent agenda. That's 8.3.3, and that's with respect to Pancake Lane. Does the councillor wish to indicate the general nature thereof?
Well, I'm not too sure if I'm in conflict, then I just want to make sure. If I am, then I won't be participating, but if I'm not in conflict, then I will participate
Okay,
in the debate.
Thank you. I am noting that down just for the record. And when we do come to 8.3.3, I do believe that item is planned to be lifted for consideration. And Councillor Kaur, you just won't be involved in that debate for with respect to the deferral.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have noted that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to your presentations. And our first presentation is with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's an update from Chief Limburner. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chief Limburner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and SLT. Just a quick update on some of the numbers. So as of today, Pelham has had a total case count of 1,055. We currently have a total active count of 122. In the region, we've had 30,214 cases, 121 today. Total active is 3,952. Total resolved 25,796, and our total fatality is 466. Ontario crossed the 1 million threshold today, so 1,455, 92,490 or 947 are resolved. Our fatalities broke the 11,000 mark. We're 11,004. Hospital admissions, 3,861 people admitted into the hospital. Out of those, 615 in ICU. 372 of those are on ventilators. Across the country, just shy of 3 million total cases. Of those, 2.6 million have resolved, and we're at 32,685 fatalities. Our variants of concern, the Delta has picked up a little bit from last week, 7.1% of our cases detected, unknown 28.8%, and the Omicron is up to 64.1% of our cases. Niagara case doubling time is up to 94 days. Our reproduction rate has gone down slightly to 0.8. Positivity rates at 26.6. Infection spread, close contact, 43.9%. Community at 28.8%. Unknown at 25.6%. And travel 1.7%. Our Niagara Regional Public Health Unit is currently working with 52 active outbreaks. They resolved 575. As far as vaccinations go, in Niagara, 4.8% of our population has received their first dose, and second dose, 77.7. If you want the total, just add those two together. Ontario, 6% first dose, 83% second dose, and countrywide, 5.83% first dose, 79.96% second dose. Our provincial indicators are all in red. There are some that are improving, but they still are in red. And the numbers that I've been talking about, I just reported, they're not accurate. Public health anticipates the number of active cases to be much higher, mainly due to the lack of testing and the contract tracing. Public health in Niagara does no longer conducts contract tracing. So those two things really contribute to the numbers or the lack thereof. Our MCC is ready to open on January 31st with a lot of excitement. There are some restrictions, but they're up and ready to go. Town Hall will remain closed to appointment only. and we'll review that on a week-by-week basis. And currently, all our operations are stable. Resources have not been compromised due to positive cases. So we're very fortunate in that field. So that's the end of my report. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for that report, Chief. Any questions from any members of council? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council received the COVID-19 update presentation from B. Limburner, Fire Chief and Community Emergency Management Coordinator for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any further discussion.
Any discussion on the Chief's report? Not seeing any.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next presentation. This is from our CAO, Mr. David Cribbs.
Thank you. Mr. Cribbs, you have the floor.
No report this evening. The chief may have stolen my thunder. Thank you, though.
Okay, very good. Short and sweet. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as there's no report, no need to have a resolution put into the record. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, that brings you to item 5 on the agenda, which is the adoption of minutes. And I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. This is C-01/2022 Regular Council, January 10th, 2022. To you, Mr. Mayor, to call for any errors or omissions.
Okay, thank you. After viewing the minutes, is there any councillor that have any comments on the minutes, either omissions or what have you? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings you to item 7 on the agenda, which is where council can lift items from the agenda. If council simply wants to just discuss or speak to a matter, they are not required to lift the items. To you, Mr. Mayor, I'd ask you to request if any councillors wish to lift any items.
Okay, thank you. Is there any councillors that would like to lift a consent agenda item? Councillor Hildebrand.
Item 8.3.3.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Any other items to be lifted by any other councillors? Not seeing any. Oh, wait, Councillor Wink?
You're muted, Councillor Wink.
Oh,
Strike 2.
yeah.
If I do one more, am I excused?
No, if you do one more, we'll call you Councillor Olson.
Ooh. Ooh.
8.3.1, please.
Thank you, councillor. Any other items? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did understand that Councillor Olson wished to also lift 8.1. I just ask if he still intends to do so.
Councillor Olson? Did you wish to lift 8.1?
This would be the recommendation sheet arising from COW with respect to the December 14th for the recommendations for the water and wastewater.
Councillor?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you to the clerk, yes.
Okay,
I didn't
thank
have
you.
my paperwork in order, yes.
Okay, thank you, councillor.
Thank
Excellent.
you. Thank you very much. I have so noted. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to the consent agenda for consideration.
Oh,
Excuse
wait,
me.
Councillor Wink?
So I withdraw my lifting. I was thinking that 8.3.1 would include the wastewater, wastewater. If it's 8.2.1, that's fine. So I don't need to lift 8.3.1.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. I have so noted. Thank you. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to the consent agenda, and you're certainly welcome to call on councillors if they wish to speak to an item.
Okay, any items on the consent agenda that a councillor would like to speak to? I see Councillor Wink.
Yes, 8.3.2, the MCC backup generator options. I'd like to thank staff for their report. I was the one who wanted investigation of this. I think staff did a thorough investigation, and quite frankly, I don't want to go forward with spending well over $1 million for a generator at the MCC at this point in time. We spent enough money on the MCC, so thank you, staff, for that report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stewart, I believe I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I assume it would be the fire chief. In 8.3.5, it said that there will be rapid testing available for town employees if they're showing symptoms. I'm wondering if that would include councillors?
To you, Fire Chief?
Sure, we would be willing to do that, provided we have enough inventory. So currently, right now, we do. So you just reach out to myself or Sylvia, and we can make arrangements for you.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping none of us will need it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other items that a councillor would like to discuss? And I see Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to 8.3.5 again, noting that there's a combined effort along with Lincoln to buy our new fire engine, and you have a process underway to equip the truck. Is that my understanding correct on that, Chief?
Any comments on that, Chief Limburner?
That's correct. The town of Lincoln is looking, their council has approved the purchase of a very similar truck. So their staff and myself are getting together, and we're going to combine our RFP to see if we can get a better deal.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stewart, I see.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In 8.3.9, there's a statement about the comprehensive parking strategy, and I was wondering if we have a date yet when that will be presented to council.
Thank you, Councillor, and I will call on Director of Planning, Ms. Weens.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, at this time, I do not have a date yet that I can commit to. We have not yet received the report. It was promised to us by the end of the year. It has been delayed, but certainly once we get the report, we will endeavor to get it on a council agenda as soon as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hahn, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, this is to Director Weens. I'm just wondering, have you reached out to the organization that is doing the parking study to query why it is still not done? It's been about, what, a year and a half?
Ms. Weens?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, I certainly have. There have been some staffing issues, primarily as a result of COVID in the last month that has set it back. Other reasons previously in terms of doing parking counts were because of lockdown measures. It was not possible to get accurate parking counts in downtown areas for a number of months. And it's been creating some challenges in terms of scheduling that as well.
Thank you. The reason I ask that is because as we all know, I mean, difficulty in getting this and the delay in getting this. In the meantime, developers can certainly come forward with, their 1.5 parking stalls per building or dwelling unit, which is from 1980s, I believe. And until we have an accurate study and then a report from staff recommendation, we're still using 1980s information. So this is concerning to me, because we're not going to be having sufficient parking. We're going to have parking issues in town until that study gets done. So that's why I continue to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to it's 8.3.4 Public Works. Reading that the LDD moth eggs census is being taken, will this be the opportunity to adjust and perhaps create the opportunity to spray more of the area, particularly around Summer Road?
Director of Public Works, Mr. Moore.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So once we get the report from our consultant Bioforest, they'll complete, they're basically, the report that they're completing now is the infestation survey. So they'll look at the town as a whole, determine where the significant egg masses are, look at the population as a whole, and then we'll use that information to formulate spray areas and spray mapping based on the results of that infestation survey. So the report will be coming to council in February. And we're gonna try to hit the February 7th date for that. If not, it'll be on the 24th. And that'll lay out the results of the infestation survey to see where the concentrations are. With that report, staff will also be then bringing further report to council for recommendation and consideration, which will lay out proposed spray areas, spray maps.
Councillor.
Thank you. One other comment or question about the fixed asset study, your management program. Looking at that, we're making a lot of progress, and that is, and at some point we're going to be adding the streetlights, I believe, from your comments. I'm thinking of the stormwater management pond and those type of things. We'll be adding them. Have we defined what constitutes the green infrastructure so that we can properly capture that? And I'm thinking about the things like wetlands, parks, spaces, green spaces in the town.
To you, Director of Planning or Director of Public Works?
Yes, so to you, Mr. Mayor. So just so I understand it correctly, you're discussing building an asset management plan which would include all our parks and all our green spaces? Well, I think
what I'm saying is I think we should define that, because I think there's a danger in picking, when we budget and work with engineered products, there's a danger of skewing our future investments in that direction and not giving enough money to things like green areas and trails and that type of thing. So I'm just wondering if we shouldn't have a definition of what green infrastructure is.
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So that's something that definitely we can take into consideration. We will be absolutely inventorying all of our trail systems. Our stormwater management ponds definitely would be included in that asset management plan. But yes, we can also include parks, playgrounds, and we intend to capture all that data.
And I'm glad to see we got the trees.
We're working on it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. If I may, Director of Public Works, Jason, if I could ask on 8.34, go back to the gypsy moth just for a second. They do a study in the fall, again, doing the egg counts and what have you. Will they, I also thought that they did one in the spring to maybe measure, for lack of a better word, their hatchability to see how many survive the winter. Am I wrong on that, or do they just go by the fall count?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the actual survey that determines the level of infestation, that is completed when the leaves fall, starting in late fall and carries through the early part of the winter. That basically will formulate what the looks like for the following year. The surveys that they complete in the springtime, closer to the actual spray, those are, once we determine all the spray zones, those are actually completed to forecast when the spray should take place. So it looks at the hatch and the amount of the egg masses and the amount of egg masses that have hatched to a certain point. And we use that data to more accurately pinpoint a spray date in May and June.
Okay, thank you for that. And one more thing on the report. I was wondering, I see the town ditching program did some in the fall, and then I see we're doing more in the spring. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought most of our ditching, and maybe it's just the contractor's preference, I thought the town did most of our rural ditching in the fall months. Is this any reason why we are changing that, or is it just the contractor's preference, or any comment on that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to the program this year, they ended up getting a late start, the contractor. I don't have the info in front of me whether or not that was a contractor delay or whether or not it was a result of a late tender. But we definitely can't do that work at this time of year. So no. Any remaining funds that were not completed in 2021 as part of that capital program would be carried forward to 2022, and we'll complete that work in the spring.
Wow. Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other?
Yes.
Is Councillor Corr? Oh, Councillor
Yes,
Corr, was that
Mr.
you?
Mayor.
Go ahead.
I'd like to apologize to the clerk. I forgot to declare a conflict of interest for the Park Place, and I had declared a conflict of interest because the property butts on to my business.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's with respect to upcoming bylaws. Thank you, Councillor Corr. I have noted, and I will remind you when we are at that section. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and I apologize.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Olson, did I see your hand?
Yes, you did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Recreation. I have a question about the Canada Games. I understand that the mayor will be running a torch run, I think, during the Canada Games. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there will be a torch run, and we are encouraging the mayor to apply to be a participant in the torch run.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would submit that would be more like a torch trundle, but I wanted to volunteer my services as a costume designer.
Well, I would definitely will not be taking you up on that. I'm sure there is 2022 attire that that's already assigned to my role. And you're right. The torch run may very well be the torch walk in Pelham. Yes. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments on agenda items? All right. Councillor Olson again.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO. Now, I understand that Grimsby's not approved the Vision Zero project for the region, and as I understand it, that makes it fail. It had the required unanimous consent. Is that correct?
Mr. CAO?
It did require unanimous consent, sir. That is correct.
Wow.
And,
wow.
My concern is that our legitimate concerns of our residents about the speed and the traffic, they haven't gone away. So I'm wondering about what the next steps are for that. Is there going to be a CAO gathering, or?
There is a weekly CAO gathering, although admittedly that's focused on COVID. We meet usually every month with respect to generic business of the day, if I may. I am extremely confident that will be on the next agenda. I should say off the top of my head, I don't actually know why it was set up to require why unanimous approval was required rather than the 2/3 triple majority. I'm sure there's a correct answer for that, but I'm unaware of what the answer is at the moment. So certainly I think it's worth having a discussion to see if that mechanism is a way forward.
Councillor Olson?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, because those concerns are still there, and I would submit that the speeds that some of these vehicles travel on confined streets are not survivable by anybody, especially kids and pets. So,
Well, that it has to be about 95% of Niagara's population voted in favor. So,
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And again, this council, I believe, passed that unanimously. It was quite a presentation that the region gave us, and I find it hard to believe that it didn't get passed by every council. However, any other questions or comments on any agenda items? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have a motion being put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the January 24th, 2022 council agenda be received and the recommendations therein contained be approved, save and accept item 8.1 and item 8.3.3. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any other discussion.
Okay. Any other discussion on the agenda items? Back to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. That brings us to the items to be considered separately. The first item that we have to consider separately is the presentation and recommendations arising from COW, and this is with respect to the recommendation sheet from December 14th, 2021, Special Council of the Whole. To you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Olson did lift this item.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Olson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the clerk has the document there, and I'd be pleased if she could read that. It's quite long, and I don't think my voice will hold up, so thank you.
Okay, Councillor. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if Council can give me a moment just to bring up the document.
And I believe Councillor Wink seconded this motion?
Yes. Does Councillor Olson wish for me to read the entire recommendation or just the last paragraph of item 12?
Councillor?
Yes, I think that would be sufficient.
Okay, if Council can just give me a moment to bring it up.
Thank you.
Through you, thank you. The paragraph, which is part of item 12, and the third paragraph within the recommendation is, and that committee recommend to council to approve the 2022 water and wastewater budget, including an increase in the water rate of 7.5% and the wastewater rate by 9.5% at their meeting scheduled for January 24th, 2022. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do understand from Councillor Olson that he did wish to move, and Councillor Wink to second, a motion. Be it resolved that the last paragraph of item 12 on the recommendation sheet for SCOW 03/2021, December 14th, 2021, Special Committee of the Whole be deferred until the next regular meeting of council being February 7th. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, any discussion on the motion brought forward by Councillors Olson and seconded by Councillor Wink? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk? Oh, I see, wait, Councillor Olson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Through you to the treasurer, this would allow, I'm presuming this will allow us to have the adjustment that you highlighted to the water rates included in it, and for the next council meeting for approval, I think.
Yes, yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm also
bring in a couple of other scenarios of different rates for council to consider, looking at the impact to the reserves.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Quinlan, and thank you, Councillor Olson. Any other questions, debate on this motion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And then for clarity, this just defers only that one portion of that paragraph. And for the vote, we begin with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur. Councillor Kaur?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. That does leave council to consider the balance of the recommendation sheet. And for the record, I will just read. The resolution would be it resolved that council hereby approves the recommendations resulting from the following. 1. SCOW 03/2021, December 14, 2021 Special Committee of the Whole, save and accept the last paragraph of item 12, which is to be considered on February 7th, 2022. I would like to use Councillor Olson and Councillor Wink as the mover and the seconder. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, any discussion on this item before us now? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And this will approve all of the other outstanding recommendations from that sheet. And this vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item on the agenda, which is the next item which was lifted. And that was lifted from Councillor Hildebrandt. And this is with respect to item 8.3.3. This is the recommendation report for the zoning bylaw amendment with respect to north side of Pancake Lane. Councillor Kaur did declare a conflict, so I just asked Councillor Kaur to leave the meeting. And Councillor Kaur, would you like me to email you when we're finished discussing?
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, to Councillor Hildebrandt, discussion on 8.33.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've got a motion prepared. Be it resolved that the consideration of the recommendation report for the zoning bylaw amendment, North Side Pancake Lane, be deferred until March the 31st, 2022.
Thank you. And does the council need a seconder?
Yes, I'd be looking for a seconder.
Okay, and we need a seconder, and I see Councillor Hahn. Can we, well, second?
Thank you. Thank you. To you, Mr. Mayor, for debate.
Any, so on this motion, Councillor Hildebrandt, you probably want to speak to it. Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Through discussions with our planning director, the representative for the neighbors asked for a deferral motion to allow additional time for further consideration. Also, the fact that the parking study was done, and I think provided in August 2020 during the pandemic, led me to the conclusion that we need extra time for the representative and possibly the parking to be reviewed with the planning department so we can make an accurate assessment of exactly what we're approving at that date.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hahn, you seconded the motion. Any comments?
Through the mayor, I think it's critical that the neighbors and I believe it's White who sent in a letter, that they correspond with the neighbors and that there's fruitful conversation between the developers and those neighbors before we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillors have comments, questions on this motion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is the motion to defer, and the first vote would be with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. If council can just give me a moment so I can email Councillor Kaur and just let him know that he can return to the meeting.
Of course.
Holly, I'm back.
Thank you, Councillor Kaur. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to your staff reports requiring action. And I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-0023 Corporate Services Modernization Grant Phase 2 Report for information, and that Council receive the Corporate Services Functions Review for automation of process report for information, and that Council approve the posting of this report on the Town of Pelham website as required by the grant agreement. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any discussion, questions on this staff report? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And this vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-0025 Corporate Services Modernization Grant Human Resource Digitalization Report for information, and that Council receive the Modernization for HR Digitalization Report for information, and that Council approve the posting of this report on the Town of Pelham website as required by the grant agreement. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on item 10.2.2 on the agenda on the staff report? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-018 Corporate Services FCM Asset Management Funding for Summer Engineering Student for information, and that Council approve the application for the FCM Asset Management Funding for an engineering summer student. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Excellent. Thank you. 10.2.3. Is there any questions, discussion on this item? I guess if I just point out or just ask the, would this be the treasurer or the CAO? It sounds like a win situation for the town. We get a grant, I believe, for around $16,000, and we get a summer student to do to work on the asset management program for a little over $3. When would we be pretty sure that we would be getting this grant? Is it more or less just a case of applying for it, or is there a chance that we might not get it? Who could answer? Mr. CAO? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Ms. Quinlan's capable of
Okay,
answering.
Ms. Quinlan?
Yeah. So through you, Mr. Mayor, it all depends on the number of applicants that they receive, and it's on a first come, first served basis. So that's why we want to get the grant in as soon as possible. The town has been very successful in 2 other grants with FCM. One was the Climate Change Coordinator, and that grant was for $50,000 for a 2-year position. And the second grant that we received was for the asset management position, and that was a $50,000 grant. So we have been successful in the past, but sometimes they don't respond as quickly. So we're hoping, I will get this grant submitted tomorrow once I was just waiting for council's approval.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other councillors' questions or comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-0017 Corporate Services Special Pre-Authorized Property Tax COVID-19 Payment Plan for 2022, and that Council approve the Special Pre-Authorized Property Taxes COVID-19 Payment Plan for 2022 in order to offer flexibility for taxpayers facing financial hardships due to the pandemic. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Before I do go to council, I'd just like to thank, it's a great thing that we're offering this again. Obviously, we're still feeling the effects of the pandemic. We're going to be feeling a huge jump of inflation this year. So although we didn't have many people buy into it last time, I think it's important that the town is again offering this for people in need. And it's great for us. Any other comments from council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-0014, Amendment to Procedural Bylaw to permit continued electronic participation in meetings until December 31st, 2022, and that the proposed amendments to the Town of Pelham Procedural Bylaw as outlined in Appendix 1 be approved, thereby facilitating electronic meeting participation until December 31st, 2022 for Council, Special Council, Committee of Adjustment, Committee of Council, and Advisory Committees, and that the clerk be directed to present the necessary bylaw at the next regular meeting of council on February 7th, 2022. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any discussion on 10.2.5 on the electronic participation? Continuing. Don't see any. Back to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to the consideration, the consideration of bylaws. Councillor Kaur has advised that he does have a conflict with respect to bylaw number 2 and 3, and therefore I just would request a member of council request that the item be divided.
Okay.
I see Councillor Wink, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Council Wink.
Thank you. Therefore, we will consider the first bylaw and then we will consider the second bylaw. So for the first one, we do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and is hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. 1. Bylaw number 4417, 2022, being a bylaw to exempt blocks 45, 46 on Plan 59M 471, municipally known as 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, Summersides Boulevard, from Part Lot Control, River Estates Phase 2 Subdivision, River Realty Developments 1976, Inc., file number PLC 06-2021. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, on this bylaw, any members of council have questions or discussions on it? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. For this, the vote begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. That brings us to the consideration of bylaws listed as number 2 and 3. Councillor Kaur has declared a conflict, and therefore I'd ask Councillor Kaur just to vacate the electronic meeting, and I will email you to let you know when we've concluded. And this is with respect to bylaw number 4418-2022, being a bylaw to adopt an amendment to the official plan for the Town of Pelham Planning Arena, amendment number 13, Park Place North, file number OPAM 0321, and bylaw number 4419-2022, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136-1987, as amended for lands located on the north side of Meridian Way, east of Station Street, legally described as part of Lot 3 and 4, Registered Plan 717, and part of Thorold Township, Lot 167, Geographic Township of Thorold, now in the Town of Pelham, for the Agricultural A Zone to a site-specific residential multi-2 RM2-312 zone and the East Font Hill Environmental Protection EFEP zone, Mountain View Homes, Niagara Ltd, file number AM12-20. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, on these two bylaws, is there any councillor that would have any questions or discussion on these two? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. If Council can give me a moment just to email Councillor Kaur.
I've returned.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Mayor, we are on item number 14, and you do have a notice of motion being presented by Councillor Olson. To you, Mr. Mayor, for Councillor Olson to present.
Excuse me. Councillor Olson on this notice of motion, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, my motion would be, will be to request a staff report on the recommendations and the letter written by Mr. Sid Vanderveen, professional engineer, dated Monday, January the 3rd, 2022, on the subject of the drainage in the Far Road, Weber Road centered area.
Excellent. Thank you. I know this is new information that council will be receiving and looking at. So thank you for bringing that motion forward. Back to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. We do have a notice of motion also being presented by Councillor Stewart. To you, Mr. Mayor, for Councillor Stewart to present.
Okay, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. My notice of motion is regarding developments for seniors in the town. We've got many committees of council who actively work on projects and give us advice. The Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee does its best to advocate for seniors, and I believe they should have a role to play in participating in conversations with developers that are designing accommodations specifically for seniors. So therefore, I'm requesting a staff report on the possibility of engaging the Seniors Advisory Group in talks with the developers to make sure that their needs will be addressed in the developments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to item 17, and I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider a matter under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as follows. B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, and D, labor relations or employee negotiations, one item, non-unionized staff. C, proposed or pending disposition of land by the municipality. Two items, file LO7-2019-02S, property located in Ward 1, and file LO7-2021-05-S, property located in Ward 1. And B, personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal employees, and F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Two items, file IC-04-2021 Integrity Commissioner Decision, and file IC-05-2021 Integrity Commissioner Decision. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on going into camera? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. If council can give me a moment to turn off the recording and the live streaming. One moment.